Hi everyone, Annie Schreck here from Mountain Crest Gardens, and today we're going to take a look at one of the most popular succulents of all time, the string of pearls. This is a truly iconic trailing plant because it grows these just like super long, gorgeous stems, and it really brings like nice indoor jungle vibes to your space. So we grow and sell this one at Mountain Crest year-round, and we regularly get questions of how to turn like a little 2-inch pot like this into something seriously epic. So today, I'm going to talk about why this plant looks the way it does and all the care info you need to grow just like a lush cascade of pearls. So let's get into it. Let's start with introductions with this one because you can sometimes hear it referred to by a number of different names. Now, its Latin or its scientific name is Senecio rowleyanus, or depending on who you ask, some botanists will put it in the genus Curio. Now, additionally, it also has a lot of common names on top of string of pearls. You might hear it called string of beads or even string of peas. Frankly, I really like the name string of peas. I think it's really descriptive because if that doesn't look like peas, I don't know what does. But regardless, the main name you're gonna hear is string of pearls. This is actually a naturally occurring species that was discovered out in the wild rather than being bred by hybridizers in nurseries. This plant is native to South Africa, and there, it's not growing in a hanging pot and trailing like this. It actually creeps along the ground, and it's like a ground cover mat. And it's usually growing in rocky outcroppings. That's going to be important when we come back and talk about its care needs, but first, let's take a closer look at its form. The first really striking thing about pearl here has to be her trailing growth habit. Now, these plants grow these long, slender stems, and they can reach about 3 feet long after a couple years of growth. You'll almost always see this plant as just completely green, like a bowl of green peas. But like the other Senecio and Curio string plants, it can take on this slight kind of magenta pink blush when it's been moderately stressed by either full sun or drought. There's also this variegated form of the species, and it's got this super cool kind of creamy white striping or even full leaves that are completely yellow. And apparently, the name string of pearls originally just referred to this variegated form, but now it applies to both. Every single one of these little pearls is its own leaf, and that round spherical leaf actually helps this plant to tolerate drought. How so, you may ask? Well, a spherical shape minimizes the area of the leaf that's exposed to drying forces like sunlight and wind, while at the same time maximizing the internal storage volume for this plant to hold on to water. That would be all fine and dandy if a leaf's only purpose was to hold on to water, but a leaf also has to be good at intercepting sunlight. So how does it do that when it's gone and minimize the amount of area exposed to the sun? Well, they put in a leaf window. Yeah, I kid you not, these leaves have windows. It's this stripe of translucent tissue that runs down the length of the leaf. And that actually allows sunlight to enter into the leaf interior and access all of these chloroplasts that need sunlight for photosynthesis. Pretty cool adaptation that allows it to tolerate diffuse and lower light conditions. The flowers on string of pearls are pretty dang cute. They're actually composite flowers, so they're made up of lots of mini flowers, and it kind of makes them look like these little white pom-poms. And additionally, they have a subtle fragrance to them actually. It's kind of a cinnamon clove smell that's really nice. Eventually, like this one here, you've seen it kind of dies out and it dries. But if you don't like the look of that, it's really easy to just snip them off. You're not gonna harm the plant. Just like that. All right, so we're familiar with how this plant grows and why it looks the way it does. But how do we get it to thrive in our homes? So I figured I'd take you through the lessons that I've learned on my own journey with this plant so that you can grow a happy, healthy string of pearls. All right, first of all, hardiness. Now, this is a soft or tender succulent, meaning that it can't tolerate frost. Personally, I really like to grow mine outdoors during the summer. I just have to make sure that I bring it inside before nighttime temperatures get down to around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. As for dormancy, I find when it's growing inside and it's not getting those seasonal patterns of light and temperature, This one doesn't really show major dormancy patterns. Really, you're gonna see it grow slowly and steadily all year long. All right, let's talk light. So I would definitely classify string of pearls as kind of a medium to low light succulent. And that's really thanks to those leaf windows that we talked about before. Don't get me wrong, this plant still really likes a lot of light. It's just that it prefers kind of diffuse filtered light as opposed to really harsh direct sun. For example, mine is growing outside in the summer on a south-facing deck, but it's pulled in under an awning so it can avoid sunburn and any really high temperatures. And then when it does come indoors for the winter, I keep mine in a southeast facing window. Sometimes it can take a little bit of troubleshooting and physically moving the pot around your house to actually find the right light conditions for this plant. So for that reason, it's really important to observe it regularly after you've moved it to a new location. So some of the things you're going to be looking for, if you see any growth that's starting to look dark and really dry and crispy, that's a sign that it's getting too much light. But on the other hand, if things are starting to look really pale and spindly, or if you see anything growing straight up, that's a sign that your plant is actually stretching and it wants more light. But once you're getting really full green growth and it is hanging downwards, you'll know you found the right light conditions. You'll sometimes see the stems clustered on the side that gets the most light, so you can tell, if it's facing a window on one side. So for that reason, I like to periodically kind of rearrange stems so everything underneath is also getting light, or even spin the whole pot so that it can form a little bit more even growth. And depending on its location, it can be a little bit tough sometimes to get light to the very top of the plant. For example, if it's growing right next to a window, all the light's just on the side. So you can end up with kind of sparse growth right on top. And that's actually a time when it's a great place to use a grow light. So kind of an overhead succulent grow light like this one will get a lot more light to the top and help encourage growth there. If you have any questions about grow lights, what kind to use for succulents, I would definitely recommend checking out our succulent grow light guide. It'll be linked down in the description. I find watering is actually one of the biggest places where people go wrong with their string of pearls care. And the thing is, string of pearls actually needs quite a bit more frequent watering than other succulents. And that's just because it's got these really slender stems. So this plant isn't going to be able to store as much water as some of the really chunky succulents. But fortunately, our same successful succulent watering strategy is still going to stand here. So we're only going to water when the soil is completely dry. And when we do water, we want to drench thoroughly, so much so that water is running out of the drainage hole at the bottom of the pot. The really great thing about string of pearls, it's good at showing you when it's ready for water. So a plant like this, it's showing kind of a bit of wrinkling on the leaves. They look a little bit deflated. Once you see signs of that, get out your watering can because that plant is ready for a deep drenching. It's really important that you always plant in a pot with a drainage hole in it. And we want to be using a good cactus and succulent soil with mineral grit to help with drainage. When it comes to fertilizer, string of pearls isn't a really heavy feeder, but I do find that a couple light applications of fertilizer in the spring can really encourage growth. So personally, I like to use Miracle-Gro Quick Start, and I just use water to dilute it to half strength. Alternatively, sometimes I just repot with fresh soil every couple years or so, and that does the trick too. Pests can be a concern with string of pearls, mainly because with so many stems, they have a lot of dark, humid microclimates and little hideouts where bugs can start to multiply before you've even really noticed them. So we want sunshine, we want good airflow, and we want really gritty soil to help prevent pests. But if you do get a bug or two, it's often a mealybug, little white cottony thing. You can treat it pretty easily. You're just gonna want some isopropyl alcohol and you gotta spray it pretty thoroughly. So I'm gonna give this a good spraying. I'm getting into all the nooks and crannies and I'm gonna keep spraying it every day until I don't see any evidence of bugs anymore. Important to note, kind of a quirky thing about string of pearls, is that even a healthy plant can have a little bit of stickiness to its stems. So if you notice this sticky residue, definitely still check your plant for pests, but if you don't see any evidence of bugs, you're in the clear, totally normal. I can't say exactly why this is, but if I had to throw out a guess, I'd say that, out in the wild, they're growing among rocks. So I think that sticky residue might help anchor them, against anything that might dislodge them, like wind or critters and things like that. If you have any other intel, let me know, because, inquiring minds want to know. If you've got a really long or maybe overgrown string of pearls, you're in luck because these plants take very well to regular pruning. So throughout its life, any extra long stems, you can just snip them off and put them back into the original pot or into a new container. And the really cool thing about these stems is that anywhere along them, they can grow new roots at these nodes. So you can see this one here, it's got 3 new roots already coming in. So we'll do a little example planting. If I wanted to propagate this in a new container, I'm just gonna snip it off up here. And I like to use like a little bit of a spiral technique. So I just kind of leave it on the pot there, and those roots are gonna shoot down into the soil. And I leave a little tail like this. Just kind of starts it trailing, some instant gratification for me, and it gives it a direction to go in. It is a good idea to replant in fresh soil every couple years or so. I would recommend doing it when you have a bit of time and patience on your hands. And that's just because these long strands, they do tangle really easily. So I find every time that I replant one, I always end up losing a couple leaves, breaking a couple stems. And that's okay. Just take it slow and accept that, anything that falls off, that's just now like an unrooted cutting that you get to propagate. So there you have it, folks. Everything you need to know to grow a seriously epic string of pearls plant. Now, I wish you all the best with your plants. And if you ever want to get your hands on one of these, we always have them over at mountaincrestgardens.com. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I invite you to subscribe and click the bell so that we can keep getting useful, succulent content to you. Look forward to next time, and until then, happy succulenting.